Welcome to The Blast Zone, the podcast where we dig up the bombs that shook Hollywood and try to find out why they went up in flames. This week, should have called it John Carter of Marvels, considering how much money it lost. This is The Marvels. Welcome to The Blast Zone.
Welcome to The Blast Zone.
We are not a podcast about bad movies. We are a podcast about movies that did badly.
That's right.
I am Jon Drake, in-house film critic of my Letterboxd account.
And I'm Ian Dukes. I'm a person with thoughts and feelings, and some of them are about movies.
Movies like The Marvels, which we'll be talking about today, if you believe that this is indeed a movie. But before we get into that, Ian, how are you doing this week?
Well, I'm slightly exhausted, but that's because I'm working on a lot of things. I mentioned recently my 2024 is picking up pace. New year, new projects, and I guess my body's just going to have to toughen up and get used to it.
Trial by fire. I mean, staying active is good, right?
Yeah. Toughening myself up through doing more things is positive all around, but in the meantime, I'm feeling tired.
If only you could toughen yourself up emotionally. And I don't mean you, I mean just people.
No, me specifically too. That would be great.
And me. Why not? I'm doing okay. My health this month has been not like concerning, but just frustrating. I get a cold and then I shake it and then I get another one. And I guess this is just what it's like to have small kids that are in school. You're always a little bit sick, especially during the winter.
That's cold and flu season. It's a bummer though.
Yeah. I feel a little froggy in my voice. If you hear me sniffling, there's no cocaine happening over here. It's just a runny nose. I know. No fun times.
It's a big bummer all around.
Big bummer all around. Kind of like The Marvels. But before we get into that, Ian, did you watch anything this week you wanted to share with the listeners?
I did. I watched something neat. It's called Monsieur Spade. It is a brand new 2024 series on television.
About David Spade.
Yeah, famous Frenchman David Spade of Tempe, Arizona. No.
He would be from Tempe, Arizona.
It's about Sam Spade, but it's on AMC. It's a TV show. It's on a TV channel.
It's actually, isn't it the American Movie Channel?
Oh, that's true. What is it? Is it TV? Is it HBO? Is it a movie channel?
It's a movie channel with lots of shows.
They've produced their fair share of good shows over the years.
Some of my faves. Halt and Catch Fire, Breaking Bad, lots of good stuff.
It's cool to see them still going strong. And the creators of the show, you may remember the name Scott Frank as the writer of movies such as Get Shorty and Out of Sight, as well as creator of other good shows like Godless and Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, Out of Sight, one of my 5 favorite movies of all time.
And now he's teamed up with Tom Fontana. All he's famous for is creating a little HBO show called Oz that started the idea of prestige television. They teamed up. They made this new show. It's a news story about an old-time private eye character, Sam Spade, which you might know from Maltese Falcon fame and people associated with Humphrey Bogart. The premise is basically what if Sam Spade went to France on a job and got all entangled in a whole new thing over there with a bunch of mysteries and private eye type of trouble. Stars Clive Owen. He's just what you want from an old-timey detective. He's tough. He's pithy. He's hard-boiled. The dialogue is super tight and zingy in this wonderful old-timey way. It's a mystery, of course, but it's like good at keeping fast pace. Things move crisply. I'm only one episode in, and I think there might be only 2 of them released so far. It's quite new, but I'm excited to see where it takes me.
Is he playing Spade as British or American? Because he's an American PI, right?
Yeah, he's playing as American.
In the books.
I think in the books he's from San Francisco, and he comes straight to France from there.
Okay.
But he's still
Clive Owen's never, even when he's playing a British guy and was playing an American guy, his voice is the same.
He has a
he doesn't have a very pronounced British accent.
He has a weird froggy voice.
So it just kind of works.
Yeah, his weird natural frogginess sort of masks all his accents. And it works for a tough guy voice. It's great. He's fun.
Yeah, I want to check it out. Just watching Clive Owen beat the shit out of some Frenchmen. That sounds like a good time in my book. And I just finished a Clive Owen show as well. I watched Murder at the End of the World, which I think I might have talked about. Ended up not really being satisfied with it, but it had a good start and a fun premise, and he was good in it.
Oh, cool.
I'll always be a Clive fan. Got to get some more movies by him on the pod. He's got a few that qualify.
So that'd be fun to have him back in.
Speaking of actors who have a few movies that qualify for the pod, I've got a relatively new one to talk about, just his streaming a few weeks ago. It was Nick Cage's new movie, Dream Scenario.
Oh, yes.
Or Scenario, depending on.
Sure.
And it was really good. There's 2 types of Nick Cage performances, and I like them both, but they're very different. There's one where he's Nick Cage.
Right.
But that's the one he does more often, I would say, especially lately. He just plays a maybe exaggerated version of himself, maybe an accurate version of himself. Who's to say? And then there's the one, he is capable, though, of disappearing into a role. He does it more rarely nowadays, like I said, but this is one of those.
Okay.
Where he's almost you're not distracted by the fact that it's Nick Cage, which is a thing that can happen in other movies sometimes. He feels like a fully fleshed out character. So his performance was fantastic. The movie itself was just super uncomfortable and weirdly dark. The trailers made it seem like a comedy, like a lighthearted comedy. This guy starts popping up in everybody's dreams. Isn't that ridiculous? It takes a dark turn like halfway through, and the rest of it is almost like misery porn for this poor guy.
Oh.
When I got to the end, I was like, that is not what the trailers show. That is not what I expected. There's a few moments that are like legitimately scary in it. I read some reviews that kind of compared its tone to Beau is Afraid, which we considered talking about, but we went with another Joaquin one last week.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, executive produced by Ari Aster was in the credits for Dream Scenario. So that kind of explains the weird tonal clashes.
He put his thumb on the spooky scale and made it creepy.
He must have, yeah. And when I say tonal clashes, they were obviously very calculated and intentional,
right.
Not like the tonal clashes we'll be talking about in a few minutes.
Right.
So yeah, I recommend it. Great cast. Obviously Nick Cage, Julianne Nicholson, who I'm rewatching Mayor of Easttown now, so I'm all in on her.
Oh yeah.
Michael Cera playing like a marketing bro, like a tech bro, doing a great job.
That sounds fun.
Aging into some more adult roles now, which is fun to see.
Yeah.
Tim Meadows,
nice.
Dylan Baker, and the movie does come back around to a little more of a hopeful tone at the very end, but it's a journey, man.
That sounds good. I heard a little bit of an interview with the director a few months back. I was like, that sounds cool, but it did sound lighthearted and fun. And I got the impression that the director thought it was, a barrel of laughs for him, but apparently for us, it's a little stressful.
I think he's Scandinavian somehow, so those people have a weird sense of humor. They only see the sun for 14 days a year or some shit.
He's naturally dark and moody, so this is like his idea of a good time.
Yeah, it's Christopher Borghi of Oslo, Norway. Yep, I nailed it.
Yep.
He's got that real Scandinavian sensibility about him. But now it's time to talk about the Marvels.
Yeah.
I wanted to do a little bit of a prologue to this episode, if you will, because me and Ian are very aware of and sensitive to this kind of discourse around movies, especially ones that center around female characters specifically.
Mm-hmm.
We really didn't want to hate this movie because so much of the worst people I've ever heard of hate this movie, but we hate it for very different reasons. It's not because it's woke. Once you use the word woke unironically to describe a piece of media and why you don't like it, I don't take your opinion seriously anymore, but we wanted to like it.
Yeah.
And it hurt our feelings when we were like, fuck, I can't like it. I can't like it.
Yeah, we should be upfront that we didn't really like it. And also, I feel that same trepidation going to this episode. I'm like, all right, I'm going to let this movie know all the ways that it fucked up. And then I was like, oh, I'm starting to sound like these other people who attacked the movie for reasons I entirely disagree with. So like, I'm scared to not step into those traps. And I don't know, maybe we'll pull some punches and just be mildly disappointed with this movie in detached ways.
Yeah, it's not like this movie is not without merit. There are fun parts, there are good performances, there are fun scenes, but it doesn't really add up to a movie in the end.
Yeah.
And when you consider that it cost $300 million to make, you're like, you should have a movie when you're done.
It almost does. We'll have to talk about, there's a lot of theories about how this movie was constructed. And everyone knows that MCU movies are heavily studio controlled and noted and reshaped in post-production. And this movie has all those hallmarks. And so it's a movie that, someone shook all the scenes and things that they had, and it got tilted sideways where there's some things that are featured in there that kind of make it more fun, but that also create conflict with some of the other aspects of it. The tonal clash is something you already brought up. It's got all this lighthearted stuff, which you can tell they pointed the ship towards that to make it more fun for audiences, but it's based on this very heavy sci-fi political thriller stuff that a lot of Marvel movies are in recent years. And so
let's be upfront. First of all, spoiler warnings if you haven't seen this movie. The crux of the movie is, did Captain Marvel do a genocide?
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, she kind of did.
She did. They lay that out there. It's the driving force of the villain, believes that she did, and she deserves to be revenged upon. And
quick, don't look at your notes. What's the villain's name?
The villain's name is Ben Darben.
Benderban. I think it's Darben.
Okay.
Sorry to put you on the spot like that.
No, it's a pop quiz kind of movie. People talk about Marvel movies requiring a lot of homework. This movie thinks that it's giving you a cheat sheet, then it pulls out the pop quiz, and I failed all the questions, so I was lost well into the middle of the movie.
There's an attempt at kind of an exposition dump coming from Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, who is, I would say, the bright spot of the movie.
Yeah. It feels like, so Kamala Khan is the most obviously fun character in the movie, the fun plot line. She's one of the three co-leads, and a lot of the plot revolves around her. And you can feel that the movie is tilted towards her. That's one of the things that we could speculate happened in post-production, that they extended her scenes and her family scenes. And hers is the one character that you understand from the beginning. But what happens, as I realized, they shortchange the other two characters, and they do a little previously on dream sequence and a couple of throwaway lines. And you're supposed to understand why these other two main characters feel certain ways about each other, feel certain ways about their own lives and themselves, and it's not clear. I realized after the movie and after I was dealing with how frustrated I was not understanding, it's like, oh, you obviously need to have seen Captain Marvel and watched WandaVision to understand Carol and Monica. Well, I did. I saw Captain Marvel. I watched the entire show WandaVision. I liked both of them. I had a good time with both of those. And yet I did not bring enough information from those into this movie to decode it.
And Captain Marvel's 4 years old and WandaVision's 3 years old.
Right.
By now, almost 5 years old for Captain Marvel. And so if you don't go back and revisit that stuff, you're not going to retain every little detail.
I'm not.
Which,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like Miss Marvel was the most clear to me because I had watched Miss Marvel and that came out relatively recently.
Oh, okay.
Good show, by the way. I like Miss Marvel. It's my favorite MCU show so far.
Oh, really? See, I didn't even watch it, but I got her because they put enough of her into the movie and on screen that I'm like, oh, I get this character. I see who she is. She has this family. She has this attitude towards the world. She has this set of wants and desires. They laid it out with a little scene at the beginning, and I'm like, I'm on board. I know what she wants. I know what she cares about. I know what her problems are. And I was able to follow her. And it was just the other two that I was like, what are they talking about? And then it gets worse from there. We'll go into how the plot complicates quickly and leaves you behind.
And the character of Monica Rambeau, like, what's her dog in this fight? You know, Teyonah Parris gives a good performance. I like her as an actor. I liked her in Candyman. But Captain Marvel feels guilty for maybe genociding an entire civilization. Miss Marvel is desperate to be on a team with Captain Marvel. She's a big fangirl. Like, what's Monica's motivation for being there? Like, she's mad at Captain Marvel for a big chunk of the movie, and she doesn't have any family she's fighting for. She just works with Nick Fury and she's just doing her job at some point. Like, so that's the stakes. If she fails, she does a bad job at her job. That's not good stakes.
No, both her and Carol, Captain Marvel, their stakes is pretty much job performance at the beginning, even though you've got this dream memory sequence thing that's supposed to clue you into the fact that Carol is feeling guilty for things that may or may not have happened when she lost her memory. But that's too cryptic to know. So basically, it's both of them are working for Nick Fury, and he's like, go investigate an anomaly. And now it's just like a TV show about a bunch of characters whose job it is to investigate space anomalies. And the only stakes are like, can we figure out what's going on?
Feels like a storyline they came up with in post. Like,
it does. It feels really thin.
It feels like they looked at the movie. Oh no, like we forgot to make a movie. Like, we got to make a movie now.
But that's because because they wanted to do a reveal. The villain actually has a great connection to the hero. And so the movie is driven by this incident where the hero essentially created the villain, or at least feels guilty for having possibly created the villain. And the villain is trying to exact revenge on everything that the hero loves. That's like a good setup for a story, but they wanted to hold it and make it a reveal later on, which is just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of bad.
Questionable storytelling.
Bad storytelling there. And like Dar-Ben, her motivation is great. Makes total sense. They did a good job of setting up a conflict where you can understand the perspective of the villain and almost agree with them to an extent, which is always positive in a movie. But then, like, she has no personality. She's very stoic. So like, she never seems angry about their situation. There's nothing going on there. She's just like going through the motions. She's got Ronan's hammer. She's basically Lee Pace from Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one.
Okay.
Because he was a Kree warrior, or I'm sorry, a Skrull. Was he a Skrull or a Kree? Is she a Skrull or a Kree?
I think she's a Kree, but I hate that I know that.
Ronan was a Kree, like warlord. She's a Kree warlord. She's got a big hammer. He's got a big hammer. He wanted to destroy the world. She wants to destroy the world. They're just retreading ground. And when you're doing like galactic space battles, like, you have such a broad palette to choose from. You can really go anywhere with it. Like, why are we just rehashing something that was done better 10 years ago?
It's almost like stock MCU character stuff at this point, especially because the villain's, I already forgot her name again. The villain's Dar-Ben's motivations are held, and they're not clear until they unfold over the course of the movie. But at first, it's stock MCU bad guy. You're like, oh, what happens is there's a bunch of powerful, ominous people that like go around the galaxy and look for treasures. Like,
they're looking for bracelets.
They find powerful treasures, right? Isn't there a whole bunch of movies where the Infinity Stones are found and then come together in the end?
Also, the opening of Guardians of the Galaxy is Star-Lord literally going out in space to find treasure.
Yeah, but at least that's his character's job, right? That's his thing. Whereas there's villains.
No, here they find a space pinata and hit it with a hammer. And they're like, oh, cool, a bracelet. They're like, we need both bracelets. And we're like, oh, fuck, there's two? And then, like,
it's super generic at this point, to agree with what you were saying. Which is
phoned in.
Yeah, which is not great. And she's great. The actor who plays Dar-Ben I'm like,
Dar-Ben.
I'm going to put it on my screen. I'm no longer going to look at you, John. I'm going to look at the word Dar-Ben on my screen.
Bendar. I'm going to say Bendar randomly just to throw you off.
I remember Bendar is from Futurama, and Dar-Benn is from Marvel Rama.
There you go. It's a good,
what was I even saying? I don't know. Yeah, she's really good, but in a Bond villain, Bond henchman kind of way. She has a great face. She looks ominous. And so just by giving you the evil eyes, you're like, oh, that's a cool bad guy, bad lady in this case. But it is very thin because, like you're saying, they don't let her say much and then keep her cards close.
She disappears for decent chunks of the movie too. Like there's not a lot of catch-up scenes with what she's working on. I see what you mean about a Bond villain. She could be like the Batista role from Spectre, but she can't be like Blofeld.
Yeah, it's fine. Like working backwards, the movie's better than I thought it was watching it forwards, which just makes me think that.
Explain yourself.
It's my second watch phenomenon. Once you know all the pieces that are going to fall into place, you go, oh, I see what's going on here, and that's a fun way to set that up. But when you don't know what's going on, it's a terrible movie, and I just did not know what was going on for a lot of it.
Do you want me to get into the making of the movie? Maybe we can piece together what went wrong.
Please, let's hear how this thing happened.
All right. Since its launch with Iron Man in 2008, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has released 33 movies. While they've had a handful of movies that failed to turn a profit, the vast majority were huge box office successes. To put a point on it, no MCU film has ever earned less at the worldwide box office than it cost to make, until The Marvels. So what happened? The original Captain Marvel film in 2019 grossed over $1 billion, despite the best efforts of the worst people on the internet who tried to review bomb it due to their dislike of the films and star Brie Larson's perceived feminism.
Look, we love bombs, but not review bombs.
Before the release of Captain Marvel, Larson said she'd be keen to do a sequel that included the Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel character who hadn't been introduced to the MCU yet. The Miss Marvel series was released on Disney Plus in 2022 and was met with critical acclaim. The characters of Maria Rambeau, played by Lashana Lynch, who appeared in Captain Marvel, and her daughter Monica, played by Teyonah Harris, and who was pivotal in the WandaVision series, were both confirmed to be included in the sequel. Megan McDonnell, who had written on WandaVision, entered negotiations to write the sequel in January 2020. Marvel announced Anna Boden and Brian Fleck, who directed and co-wrote Captain Marvel, would not return, and they would look to hire a female director to replace them. Jamie Babbitt and Olivia Wilde were considered, but Little Woods and Candyman director Nia DaCosta was considered the frontrunner and was announced as the director in August 2020. Disney also confirmed the film, now titled The Marvels, would be released on July 8, 2022. DaCosta's original pitch included Adam Warlock and centered on time travel, but this was shot down as Marvel said Adam Warlock was already in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and time travel was already a key part of the Loki series. Teleportation was up for grabs, though.
Oh great, teleportation, that's like the hardest thing to grab.
Kevin Feige announced the new release date as November 11, 2022, and pre-production began in February 2021. British actor Zawe Ashton was cast as the main antagonist Dar-Benn, and the script was being reworked to account for the events of the Miss Marvel series, which wasn't filmed yet, but was fully written. Filming began on July 26, 2021, almost a full 2 months behind schedule, at Pinewood Studios in Buckinghamshire and Longcross Studio in Surrey. By October 2021, the movie was delayed to February 17, 2023. This is a lot of dates. Jesus, it's a date-heavy monologue.
You think these dates are a bit much? Tell that to the monkey from Indiana Jones.
Filming wrapped in December 2021, and the release date was again delayed to July 28, 2023, swapping release dates with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, as that movie was further along in production. Larson would cameo in the final episode of Miss Marvel in July 2022, using footage that was shot by DaCosta for the Marvels. This was a surprise to DaCosta. The film required a large number of reshoots, with Joanna Robinson of The Ringer reporting the film was undergoing a, quote, massive overhaul through the reshoots to make the storyline coherent.
You know what? That's a good goal. Good for them for trying.
In February 2023, the movie was delayed once again to its final landing spot of November 10th, 2023. The movie's final budget, including the reshoots, was $274.8 million. It would need to be a massive hit to even break even, given its estimated break-even point of $700 million. Did it make it? You do know what this podcast is about, right? Further complicating matters was the SAG-AFTRA strike, which barred the cast from promoting the movie and attending the premiere. The movie debuted in first place with $46.1 million, well short of original estimates of $60 million and the lowest MCU opening of all time. The worst was yet to come, though, as it dropped an astonishing 78% in week 2 and only made $10.1 million. That is the biggest drop for a superhero movie ever. That includes Steel, Daredevil, Catwoman, etc. By its third week, it was making $6.4 million, good for 6th place. It would limp out of theaters with $206.1 million worldwide. Disney is cagey about financials, but it's not unreasonable to consider The Marvels the biggest box office bomb of all time. John Carter cost about the same, but made about $80 million more, and likely did not have the marketing budget of the Marvels. Reviews were mixed, with a Rotten Tomatoes score of 62%, and audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the movie a B, tied for the lowest in the MCU with Eternals and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Finger-pointing would follow, with Disney CEO Bob Iger citing the large amount of MCU content produced for Disney Plus as having a negative impact on the film, but also saying the film suffered from, quote, insufficient day-to-day supervision by Disney executives. Other sources close to the production said that DaCosta left post-production before it was completed and finished it remotely to work on her film Hedda with Tessa Thompson. This move, which is actually commonplace for directors juggling multiple projects, sparked a response from DaCosta that Disney's shuffling of the film's release date changed it from a 2-year commitment to a 3.5-year commitment. DaCosta further clarified she had pushed the production of Hedda 3 times and may not have been able to make the movie if she delayed it again. It seems safe to say she will not return for Captain Marvel 3 if it ever happens.
Kind of sucks if they were trying to throw her under the bus at the last minute there.
They definitely were. And I think it's pretty shitty of Bob Iger, especially when you're 33 movies deep and this is the first one ever directed by a black female director. That's the one you decide, you know what? There wasn't enough supervision. We got to call it out. We got to talk to the media.
Yeah.
Get this out there.
Yeah. I mean, the industry has to shift now because they clearly used up all the runway they had in the MCU and they started not to be able to get those planes off the ground. But it's Bob's whole thing. Bob Iger, if I understand recent movie history, is the man who single-handedly said, the old movie business sucks. We take too many chances on all these movies that don't work. We're only going to make hit movies from now on.
What a novel concept. Why didn't anyone else think of that?
Yeah. And it kind of worked. And maybe he doesn't get credit for it because it was a lot of fortuitous luck in the way that...
I think Feige gets most of the credit for it, for actually like shepherding the...
Yeah. And people say that they didn't know when they started with Iron Man or whatever that it was going to turn into this. There was a lot of lucky things had to fall into place to make it turn into the phenomenon that it did. And then they milked it. And then like people like, oh, they're not going to theater. So his strategy is purely a corporate money-making strategy. So it's like, okay, we've got to milk it. We've got to make 1 million TV shows. And now he's like, oh, there's too many TV shows and it's too hard and it's over-milked. Who did this? Well, you did, Bob.
I don't understand how we're in the year 2024. People still don't understand. Like people who make tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars a year to know this type of shit aren't aware of market saturation.
Yeah.
Like I'm fucking sick of Marvel movies. I'm sick of them.
Yeah.
I'm sick of Marvel media. Like it's been shoved down my throat for over a decade, 15 years at this point, more. And it's not enough that, oh, well, you know, if you don't want to see it, don't watch it. But no, now I can't watch this other thing because I'm missing out on some backstory that I need.
There's the understanding that all things may run their course, but the fatigue is definitely related to the quality. They made their job harder and harder. It got harder and harder to make. It was always hard to make original fun movies, right? That's why movies had such a low hit rate in the first place. And it's not just that you have material that you're like referencing other stuff. That's not what makes the movies fun. This was set up 7 movies ago. What makes movies fun is what always made movies fun. So that's still really hard to do. And yeah, you can maybe gloss over some of it with spectacle and familiarity and some formulas that you can repeat. But this movie just wasn't that good on its own as a movie. And if it had been better, it would have still probably made enough money that nobody would have freaked out.
What it boils down to for me, at least, is that there's a homogeny to the MCU product that was very useful in the early days to establish a consistent tone and visual style, but they haven't updated it and it's run its course many times over by now. Like they made a Moon Knight show. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They made a Moon Knight TV show. Moon Knight's my favorite comic book character. I didn't finish it.
I didn't either.
I watched every season of Daredevil. I watched fucking Iron Fist. Because even though Iron Fist was bad, those shows at least felt, but they were trying to do something, you know?
That speaks to that you had a pool of enthusiasm built up over your entire youth that had not been exhausted at that point. Because Moon Knight wasn't that bad. It was actually stylistically a little bit outside the Marvel norm. Maybe not far enough, but it wasn't that compelling.
It teased at coloring outside the lines, but then eventually it fell into line.
But let me just add to defend myself here, and it's not just a pure Marvel hater at this point. I liked Quantumania. I didn't think I was going to like it. I went into it open, just like, well, maybe this will be entertaining, which is what you expect from a Marvel movie at this point. And I expected to be bugged by the things that people complained about. It's all fake. It's like 100% green screen movie. It feels claustrophobic and gross and not fun to be there. And I was like, oh, I think of myself as sensitive to those things. I'm like, I'm not going to like it. And it just did what a movie's supposed to do. It brought me into the story. I knew what the hero's problem was. I knew what he was up against. I was able to follow what happened within the story. Some action happened and things unfolded. And I was like, oh, that was enjoyable. So just to say that like coming into the Marvels, I wasn't carrying a big chip on my shoulder. I wanted to like this. I wanted it to be that kind of pleasant surprise that Quantumania was. And I couldn't hang with it.
Actually, to backtrack on what I said a little bit, I did really liked the last Marvel movie I saw. That was Guardians 3.
Oh, yeah. That was solid.
That was good. Before that, I think Shang-Chi maybe was the last one I enjoyed.
That was fun. That was not great, but it worked as that kind of popcorn movie, I thought.
But I also feel like they're failing to connect the dots on a lot of this stuff. I don't know. Especially, it's not their fault at all, but the Jonathan Major situation, it's like, what's all this building towards? If that's your main thing, is that we're going to make movies that build towards this grand conclusion, this big team up. Like now I'm like, it's been like 20 movies since we've had a big team up, and I don't know what we're working towards.
Yeah. Marvel had a successive set of strokes of bad luck, which makes it worse that Bob Iger should be calling out Nia DaCosta for the failure of this movie. Among them was Jonathan Majors, the various Hollywood strikes, the COVID pandemic. There was a lot that took the steam out of the movie industry as a whole and Marvel movies specifically.
Some of it's self-inflicted though, like they can't get effects done in time because they've literally overworked the entire special effects industry by releasing too much effects heavy stuff. They either have to pay exorbitant amounts to jump the line, or they just can't get them done, or they get subpar work, which is why a lot of shots in recent movies have been called out as like, how is this in a $300 million movie?
Really?
It's because some poor bastard was working like 20 hours straight and he was given an impossible deadline to make this shot happen.
I didn't even realize that. But yeah, that reflects poorly on Bob because that's an executive management problem. That is not any particular filmmaker's problem.
Right. It boils down to like a supply chain issue, which should be like chief executive, big picture type shit.
Exactly.
But Bob was out for a while, wasn't he?
He was. He came back like a year ago or maybe more now. Time flies when you're having disaster.
I mean, the guy who was running it when he was gone was a real fucker too, so let's not cut him any slack.
Yeah, he didn't impress anybody in his short tenure.
If we can get Zaslav out of here next, it'd be great. We're talking around the movie a lot. Do you want to talk about the movie a little more in depth and get into the plot?
Yes, let us crack open the comic book and see what happens in the story.
All right.
You may have heard of Carol Danvers, a.k.a. Captain Marvel, played by Brie Larson. It turns out there's two other ladies with similar light-based superpowers. There's Air Force Captain Monica Rambeau, played by Teyonah Parris, who's the daughter of Carol's late best friend. And then there's Kamala Khan, played by Iman Vellani, a teenager who calls herself Miss Marvel, but has no connection to Carol except that she's a huge Captain Marvel fangirl. One day, an ominous being called Dar-Benn, played by Zawe Ashton, creates a disturbance in the universal network of so-called jump points, portals that connect distant parts of space together. And when our three heroes separately attempt to investigate the disturbance, they somehow become linked through quantum entanglement, such that when they try using their powers, they instantaneously teleport and swap places. This causes a lot of confusion until they figure out what's going on. For better or worse, the three ladies are now bound together and have to learn to work as a team you might call the Marvels.
Heyo. I know you mentioned Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel, but it would be helpful for me if I knew where she was from. Do you have that information available?
No, you would think that they would I got no idea where she might be from in the U.S.
It says here she's from Jersey City, New Jersey, actually.
Oh, Jersey City. Yeah. Oh, I heard of a, there is a Miss Marvel from Jersey City. I think she was from Jersey City, if I remember.
New Jersey. Yeah, Jersey City, New Jersey.
Yeah, Jersey City's one of my favorite parts of New Jersey. It's right in the Jersey City area.
Is it really? You ever been to Jersey City?
No. I think do you drive through Jersey City on your way between Manhattan and South Jersey?
No, it's like Fort Lee, I think. Like going to Philly from New York, you don't really drive through Jersey City. But no, my dad lived in Jersey City when I was a kid, so he spent some time there in the summers, and my mom would throw out all my stuffed animals when I came home because they'd have roaches.
Oh, yikes.
So that's Jersey City in a nutshell. But the reason we're bringing this up is because Kamala Khan says the words Jersey City entirely too many times. It's worse than Pilsen, I think.
We've become sensitized because it seems to follow us around, movies where characters call out
Nirmata. But she's, I can't believe it. Little old me from Jersey City teaming up with Captain Marvel. Just a girl from Jersey City. I'm like, we get it.
Is that a Jersey thing that people like to shout out in New Jersey?
Oh, they definitely do. Jersey people are way too proud to be from New Jersey.
Okay.
It's a weird, go eat a pork roll. Leave me alone about it. Or a Taylor ham, depending on whereabouts you're from.
Sounds tasty.
Yes. But all right. Now let's get into the real analysis.
Yeah.
It gets deeper.
Let's get serious here. This is a serious show.
Serious show about a serious movie. Kinda.
Oh, we want to talk about how mad I got watching this movie?
Mm-hmm.
I feel a distance from it now, so let me just say I'm not as mad at this point after rewatching, not all of it, I'll admit, but rewatching a good chunk of it and taking a broader perspective. But I texted you about 15 minutes into watching this movie to say, I'm trying not to get mad, but this movie is making me feel angry feelings. And then 3 minutes later, I was fully mad. I was so mad. I was like, what gets me mad is when they try to do drama and characters make faces and act serious and get intense, but you haven't told me who they are or why I should care about them. And that happened with 2 of the 3 leads. We started already going over this ground. There was a lot of that in that first 20 minutes. And then we'll get to the next sort of set pieces and locales. They changed the tune, but they did not ease off the irritating aspects of this movie after that.
Yeah, there's like this clear, not necessarily hostility, but awkwardness between Monica and Carol in the early parts of this movie. But I didn't know why. It was not clear to me why these two were like weird with each other. Like Monica seems to be a little angry at Carol, but I don't fucking know why.
Yeah, at first,
and like the movie takes its sweet time telling you.
But there's like whole scenes where Nick Fury's trying to get him to talk, and Monica's like, I don't think so. No, you know what? I'm not ready to talk to her. I don't want to speak to her. That wouldn't be appropriate. Let's stick to business. I'm like, something happened between these two. And by the end of the movie, I did not know what that was.
But it's not teased in like a breadcrummy type of way. It's almost like, you guys get it. Like you all know what this is about.
Yeah, which is off-putting and eventually infuriating when enough of those things like that happen.
But then there's the whole jump point thing feels kind of like placeholder sci-fi conflict. Like we got portals now. Portals are just flat sky beams. Sometimes sky beams are portals.
It's real generic stuff. It made me even ask myself, did they make up jump points for this movie? Nick Fury is trying to go, the system of jump points. They're going crazy. You got to fix the jump points. And I'm like, was that always a thing? Does everyone else who watches MCU movies know that the universe is populated with jump points, or did they just come up with it for this movie and they're like faking their way through? Like everyone knew it was there the whole time.
Did you figure out an answer? Because I'm curious if I've just forgotten about them or if they're a thing.
No, I have no idea.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Nick Fury. I didn't write a note about him, but I thought it was worthwhile to note that I like Samuel L. Jackson in this movie. I think he's having fun. I think he's given a good Samuel L. Jackson performance. Did not feel like Nick Fury, though. Like he's playing to the movie, which is like lighthearted and silly most of the time. But that's not Nick Fury.
I was wondering about that too. I'm like, has he been this way in other movies? He's like the funny uncle in this. And I'm like, I thought he was a little bit more of a serious...
He's chasing cats around and it's like making quips. He's like shooting somebody and then blowing smoke off the gun like an old-timey cowboy. Yes. I'm like, no, he pops up in movies and he's like the boogeyman. He's like, oh, fuck, Nick Fury's here. Like, we're going to do something dangerous. Or like, Nick Fury's here. He's going to try to regulate superheroes and shit. Like, he's a no-nonsense international assassin type dude. And they neutered him in this. He didn't feel cool or dangerous, just funny.
Maybe those were all the reshoots where they're like, Nick Fury is going to be a different character. He's going to be Uncle Nick in this movie. He's going to be a silly Billy. And the fact, like, it's one thing if he has a funny, lighthearted relationship with Kamala, who's a kid and who's brand new, and she's so excited to meet him. So it would be natural to see him take on a different role with her and show a different side of himself. But then he gets alone one-on-one with Carol, who he knows well from their history in their other billion-dollar movie they did a few years ago. And they're just razzing each other and being silly together. And I'm like, this feels weird.
It's a strange dynamic that just didn't feel true to the character. Another one of my favorite comic book characters. I was pretty happy with how the MCU handled him up until this point.
But yeah, he's a lot of the comic relief in this movie. He's the center of the comic relief subplot around the parents and the alien creatures, which we'll get to them later on.
And we already talked about Dar-Ben at length before we started the synopsis. So I don't know if you had any notes about what she does in Act 1 you wanted to go over.
I think we went over pretty well. She's probably in the rest of the movie, but we'll find out.
Logic would dictate that, yes, she's probably in the rest of the movie. You want me to go through the next section?
Let's hear what happened next.
The first task of the titular Marvels is to protect Kamala's mom, dad, and brother from Dar-Ben's henchmen. The family is saved, and Nick Fury takes them up to his orbiting space station for safekeeping. Next, the Marvels go to a Skrull refugee colony on the planet Tarnax, where Dar-Ben is causing a massive natural catastrophe. Dar-Ben creates a rift in the jump points, which siphons fresh air back to her own dying planet of Hala. The Marvels manage to evacuate some of the Skrull refugees, but sadly, many are left behind to die. Next, the Marvels travel to a world called Aladna, where the inhabitants communicate through song. It's revealed that Carol is actually a princess among the people of Aladna, but then Dar-Ben attacks and uses ruptured jump points to siphon seawater back to her planet. Don't you want fresh water?
Yeah.
Can't drink seawater. The Marvels put up a good fight, but eventually are forced to flee. After losing 2 battles to Dar-Ben, Carol breaks down, admitting to Monica and Kamala that she feels responsible because Dar-Ben blames her for the desolation of planet Hala, but her friends are supportive. Then they realize Dar-Ben's third and final target will be to steal the energy of Earth's sun. So the Marvels raced home to try to stop Dar-Ben and save Earth. Man.
A lot of words.
I think, you got mad really early at this movie, and I got mad in this section of the movie.
Yeah.
This is when I was like, I fucking hate this movie.
I got more mad.
But the section starts off okay. I didn't mind the fight scenes in the Khan household, which I believe is in Jersey City, New Jersey.
Okay, sure, if you say so.
Because They're fun. They're a nice change of pace because they take place in a real place and not a CGI spaceship. Like, it's close quarters. It feels tethered to reality to some degree, even though there's teleportation and spectral jumping and all this stuff happening. But then we're right back to the CGI spaceship.
It should have been more fun. It was fairly well executed. This is when the teleportation link, the entanglement between the three heroes is first really explored. And we see, oh, shit gets crazy when they try to fight because they keep swapping places. And it's a fight that happens simultaneously at 3 different locations. And one of them is the Jersey City living room of the Khan family. And so that's really, it's scary stakes, but yet funny cartoon action, and seeing the funny Kree henchmen fighting in the living room and smashing up the suburban house. Like, all that is should be fun. But because I was still mad about not understanding Carol and Monica's motivations, and I'm like, now you're making it more complex. There's a lot of smashing shit up. They tried to win me over with the Missy Elliott remix, and I was like, no, I can't even enjoy that.
It was a banger. It was a banger. Like, I would listen to it apart from this movie and enjoy it, I'm sure.
Yes. Apart from this movie, I could maybe enjoy it. I could not enjoy it in that scene. I'm sorry.
So then we get what I am lovingly referring to as the Spaceballs section of the movie, where they go from blow to suck and steal the air from Tarnax. Do you remember Spaceballs at all?
No. Spaceballs is a weak point. You know what? I'm a Mel Brooks fan. I've tried to watch Spaceballs a number of times over the course of my life. I can't get into it. I can't penetrate Spaceballs. None intended whatsoever. I promise.
You know what you do, Ian? You get yourself a tape recorder. You record yourself talking and listen back to the end of the day.
Oh, Ian, you blowhard.
But that is the plot of the villains in Spaceballs, is to steal the air, which my friend Tim was like, isn't this just Spaceballs? And I was like, oh man, you're right.
That's funny.
But they do it, they triple it up. They steal not just air, but also the seawater, which, as I said to myself while I was reading the synopsis, wouldn't you want fresh water? You can't drink. Are they just big fishermen?
Yeah, I guess you take what water you can get. They can try to desalinate when they get it back home to Hala.
Maybe they have those straws that you can drink seawater, and by the time it gets to you, it's been desalinated.
They have a lot of high technology on the Kree homeworld. They just lack natural resources. So that starts to make, this is the part of the movie where you're like, oh, wait a minute. The Kree seem to be like these evil villains, but all they're trying to do is borrow some air and some water because their world sucks.
Survive.
Yeah. So it's maybe they could have asked for it more nicely, but you do feel a little sympathetic if their needs are like not galactic domination. It's like, guys, can we have some air and some water?
Yeah. Some sunlight, maybe.
But
then, Tarnax, we get our first official sky beam of this movie.
I knew you weren't going to be happy. It only took 30 minutes. Already there's a sky beam. It's not a great sign for a movie.
When I saw the jump points, I was like, at least it's not a sky beam. And I saw the sky beam and I was like, motherfucker.
And it was a gratuitous sky beam. She doesn't even do a sky beam move again later. Like, she attacks 3 planets and ruptures jump points to suck out their resources. But this is the only time that it was full on sky beam methodology. It was just kind of like, oh, we got to have a sky beam. Let's do it now. Get it over with.
Like checking a box. So that's everything on Tarnax. But we do get a cameo from Valkyrie from the Thor movies.
Yeah.
Played by Tessa Thompson. Tessa Thompson and Nia DaCosta seem to work together quite a bit. Tessa Thompson starred in Little Woods, which is a movie I'm desperate to watch, but I can't find it anywhere. It's Nia DaCosta's first directorial effort, and it's a crime thriller starring Tessa Thompson, which, I want to see that.
Yeah, I would watch that.
But Tessa Thompson, I have a problem with her.
Okay.
She's not my girlfriend. No, it's not the only problem I have with her. She's kind of like Lady Tom Hardy.
Okay.
She does these voices. She's always doing a thing. It's not as bad when she's Valkyrie, but it's pretty bad. You know, she's like always trying to give her character something a little extra, but she misses a decent amount with the voice.
And she only has a few lines in here. I did notice, I'm like, I think I recognize Valkyrie.
She's dressed as Janelle Monáe.
I didn't have any problem with her outfit, but I had a problem with, it was another MCU pop quiz where she looks at Carol and goes, I'm going to take these people to you know where and you know why. And she's like, yeah, that's why I called you. And I'm like, okay, whatever. You guys know what you're doing. And that kind of wrapped
What if she just flew them into deep space and left them? She's like, we can't take care of all these fucking people, but we got to pretend like we're trying. So I'm just going to put them in a spaceship on autopilot and just tell it to keep going.
Then later I found out there's a new Asgard, which is like a pretty good refugee camp already. So that was why it was a good spot for these refugees. Am I right on that? Does that sound familiar?
Oh, I've tuned out most of Love and Thunder. So if that's where it happened, I'm not sure.
We're guessing here.
Is it like, it's not like the fishing village where they find Thor in Endgame, right? Because she was there with him. That's not the new Asgard. That was just like where they were hanging out in the meantime.
Kind of remember like Asgard got destroyed and there was like a lot of Asgardian displays.
Yeah, I do remember that from Ragnarok because that's my favorite MCU movie. That was the end of Ragnarok, is Asgard is destroyed and they take a ship. But then Thanos intercepts that ship, and that's the opening of Infinity War.
Okay, that's familiar. I can picture what you're talking about.
But yeah, I'm unclear where they all live now.
And man, that's just the line. Where did I wrote it down? Carol Hero gets on the horn and goes, Fury, it's the Kree. They're going after the Skrulls on Tarnax. I'm like, what the fuck did you just say?
The Florkins are
I know. I started taking notes. Yeah, the Scrimblons are getting evacuated to Flambular.
I said Florkins. Actually, Flurkins are a real alien race in this movie. So
shit.
That's what the cats are called.
Oh, you're right. Okay.
Cat Flurkins. So I wasn't even that far off. That's not good writing. And also, fuck is Nick Fury going to do about it? Like, you're Captain Marvel. You could fly there now. Like, you could be there literally by the time you're done with that sentence. Just go fix it. It's your job.
Well, I think she did, but then she got scooped by the Skybeam and had to flee.
We got to talk about the training montage of them trying to figure out how to be a team. Did you like this section where is it set to music?
Yeah, a song might come on later. The heroes get to circle up, learn about each other, show their personalities. And it's so silly and quippy. And I just couldn't buy it. And I had to question my own feelings because I came in with some negativity about Brie Larson. And I'm like, did I get wrapped up in some online discourse and absorb some negativity that she doesn't deserve? And I tried to research it. There's definitely one point where there was a press junket clip of her and Hemsworth giving some interviews. And she comes off awkward and slightly off-putting, but I don't know if she deserves my scorn for that. But maybe it's just sometimes you get a feeling about a person's face. I don't buy her as like a friendly, quippy, funny person. I liked her when she was playing an ominous Captain Marvel, but I had trouble with the jokey parts of her in this film.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've enjoyed her as an actor in the past. I don't think she's a bad actor, but I don't think she's necessarily right for this version of Captain Marvel that they're trying to almost retcon into being this like happy-go-lucky, carefree Carol Danvers. It just doesn't vibe with what I know of her. She's great in Room, and she is capable of being funny. She was in The League, which in retrospect, she was in The League? Brie Larson, the star of the $1 billion movie Captain Marvel? But yeah, she was. And Room is a super great performance. I think she might have won an Oscar for that one, or at least been nominated. But yeah, something about her doesn't work in this movie for me. And I think she has worked as Captain Marvel in the past. But like you said, she had a different characterization in past movies, I feel.
I didn't remember that much of Captain Marvel, but I remember liking the movie. Not thinking it was perfect, but I don't think I came away with any problems with her. Something I brought into this movie.
No, Captain Marvel was good.
Yeah.
I like Captain Marvel.
And talking about her characterization here, the Kamala Khan character is so jokey and funny. She's got this Jimmy Fallon like manic energy. And that maybe would have set off better against a stern Captain Marvel, right?
Right.
But it almost undermines the comic relationships there to make Captain Marvel also quippy and funny.
That's a good call out. I didn't even think of that. But yeah, they're just egging each other on at some point. And maybe more of an odd couple relationship would have been effective. But Iman Vellani, I was really impressed with her in both the Miss Marvel show and this movie. I think she's a lot of fun. And surprisingly, she's never acted in anything when she wasn't Miss Marvel. These are all her first act. She was in a short as Miss Marvel, and then she was in the show and this movie. And that's all she's ever done. That's the only thing on her upcoming docket is to play Miss Marvel in the next Avengers movie, which is pretty crazy.
Straight to the big time.
Reach that level of stardom.
She's going to have some weird expectations about the movie business. But no, I hope she's successful. She's very likable. I got tired of her character in the middle of this, and nothing to do with her as an actor, but they should have given her like a little more of a unique character trait. Like she was just doing all these lines that we've seen before. It's like a kind of Saturday Night Live character of the breathless, overexcited teenager. And so I was like, yeah, but what's unique about her? I don't know. I wanted like a little more.
The Chris Farley, like, do you remember when you did this?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
She didn't even have a cool catchphrase. That was awesome.
What I realized in this section of the movie is she's just Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They're copy and pasting what Spider-Man did in the Avengers movies. She's young, she's plucky, she's funny, she's cracking wise, but also the other characters feel protective of her and don't necessarily want her in the most dangerous of the situations they find themselves in. Like, you can help up to a point, and she rebels against that. That's literally the same plot point that happened in Infinity War with Spider-Man.
It's a familiar trope, and it's a good one. Like, I think you could still build movies around those kind of relationships between young and old heroes.
And she does fail at one point, and she feels guilt, but the movie just glosses over it so fast. It could have been an interesting examination of her character, but the movie just doesn't go deep enough on it.
Yeah, it was never going to really.
Because there's jokes to be made.
That's right. Speaking of jokes to be made.
Speaking of jokes.
One Whole Planet is a big joke. It's a bit.
I would like to preface this by saying this is my least favorite sequence in an MCU movie ever.
That's fair.
I don't like when people sing when they're not supposed to. I'm like the mayor of Footloose, but for singing and not dancing.
like that.
Like, cut that shit out, man.
Do not travel to Aladna, the musical planet, because we find out pretty quick when we get there, their language is singing. They don't understand you if you speak without singing and dancing probably too. And
even though they're singing English.
Right? It seems to be the same language, but they don't know what you're saying unless you're singing it. And it's in a theatrical musical theater style.
Sure is.
So it's not like, I don't know, would they understand if you've busted out some death metal or some blues or anything else, or is it just musical theater that they communicate?
Right. Can you rap? Like, will they get that?
What is singing?
Maybe like Drake, like when he like raps one line and then sings one line, they'd be like, I can understand some of what you're saying, man, but
he's crossing boundaries. As soon as I realized this premise, I was literally saying, oh no, out loud to myself in my kitchen as I watched this movie. And then
keeps getting worse.
It gets worse because they escalate it to more and more extravagant singing, dancing situations. I have to admit, dear listeners, I literally cried. There was one point where a tear came to my eye out of the sheer frustration of knowing that I would have to watch my way through the rest of the sequence.
And Brie Larson did have a music career in her early days. Like she was trying to make it as a singer. And she did an okay job singing in the Scott Pilgrim movie, I thought, when she re-recorded Metric's Black Sheep.
I remember that. I like that.
Yeah, she has a good singing voice, but she's like an octave too high in this one, and it's like dog whistly.
Something is grating about her voice. And it's, again, a thing that like I hesitate to bring up because it sounds like piling
we're bashing her.
Yeah, like bashing Brie Larson. We assume it's her voice because we know she has a history of singing her own stuff in movies, but I remember talking about that in Scott Pilgrim, and I'm like, oh, she's a good singer. I thought she was totally credible. In this, she has one little snippet of a Disney-style number with her prince dancing in a ball gown for some reason, and it's like, it's not good.
Oh yeah, she's married too. We didn't know that before this. It seems like no one knew that. There's no homework you could have done to have that information.
And it's a funny reveal. Oh, I should tell you, I had to marry this prince in a marriage of convenience. Doesn't make any sense, but none of it makes sense.
To broker a treaty or something. Like she says she helped him out with a legal issue is how she describes it at first, which is a funny line when you get the reveal. But I was so mad about the singing that I didn't care. Through all this singing and dancing, we're like, did Captain Marvel do a genocide? Like we still haven't solved the mystery.
No, that is really a problem with this movie. They took a plot that would be good in a dark, serious sci-fi superhero movie, and then they're like, no, we're going to lean away from that and make it just really silly. And I'm like, it doesn't feel right to try to tackle those things together. Even the basic drama doesn't work because what happens next is things blow up on Aladna and the three of them try to fight off the villain and they barely escape with their lives. And then they have that low point scene where the three heroes are again alone and Carol has to admit to them that why she's called the Annihilator by the Kree and she thinks she may deserve it. And again, we're piling on here, but Bree's acting not good in the scene. What happened?
I don't know if she was checked out or something, but I felt the same. And the way she describes it, it's her fault. Not that she did a bad thing for the right reasons, which is a frequent plot point in superhero movies, but it doesn't seem like she made any effort to right the wrong. She just moped about it for 30 years or whatever.
And so I caught a clue, and I don't know if this is right, but on my rewatch, I caught a little clue that it's supposed to not really be her fault because they don't show what happened. They show the moment where she blows up the Supreme Pyramid where the Supreme Leader lived. And as I recall from the last movie, she was justified because there really was an evil villain that needed blowing up. But the unfortunate part was the fallout was the planet fell into ruin. But there's one point early in the movie where they go, in the civil war that followed, they decimated the planet. She wasn't fighting that civil war.
No, but she created a power vacuum which caused the Civil War.
Yeah, so
I guess it ties into like U.S. foreign policy of like,
right.
You topple a government, what's your responsibility then to help them maintain it?
And that's a good, nuanced, sophisticated way if you're doing this story of morality, of power and politics. That totally makes sense. But for the most of the movie, they don't go into that at all. They just keep replaying this one vision of her when she blows up this building. And you're like, oh, she blew up the building and it destroyed the atmosphere and all the natural resources of the planet and made their sun wink out. Like she did it all with her one energy beam. But that's not really what the movie was trying to tell you.
Never mind the fact that, I'll save that for the third act because I have an issue with the easy resolution of one of these problems.
Yes, we're definitely going to talk about that. Should I take us into the third act?
Let's go for it.
Here we go. Dar-Ben has ruptured a jump point and has begun stealing Earth's sun, which has destabilized Nick Fury's space station. So before they can battle their enemy, the Marvels must first rescue everyone aboard the station, which includes Kamala's family. They successfully rescue everyone with the help of a pack of alien kitten creatures. But then things get worse as Dar-Ben steals Kamala's powerful wrist bracelet artifact and uses it to open a dangerous rift between realities, destroying herself in the process. So that's good. The Marvels focus all their power and they manage to close the rift. But in doing so, Monica remains trapped on the other side. But at least Earth has been saved, and Kamala returns to her family. Then Carol travels to the planet Hala and begins to try to right her wrongs by using her own powers to reignite their son. Meanwhile, Monica wakes up in a medical facility and realizes she's trapped in a parallel universe that's different from our own.
Multiverse.
Parallel universes? What's Marvel going to think of next? That's crazy.
This is wacky. One thing I wanted to call out is the name of the planet is Hala. We just had a villain named Hela, like not too long ago.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just confusing because we're like, there's a decent amount of crossover between the Thor and Captain Marvel because they're both spacefaring.
Yeah.
Like, wait, Hela's back? They destroyed Hela? It's a place. I thought Kate Blanchett was back. No,
Yeah.
no, that's just me being an idiot, though.
But
that's not really.
Yeah, put that on the long list of confusing things that happened in this movie.
Let's talk about the cats.
Yeah.
They cast some cute fucking cats for this part. Like they whoever their casting director was for the kittens.
The cat sting director?
Oh boy, that's a mouthful. Okay. But they nailed it. These cats are adorable, but they're not really cats. They're flurkins.
Okay.
Who have pocket dimensions in their bellies.
Is that what goes on?
That's why they can swallow so much stuff. And so like this sequence was fun. I laughed. They're playing Memories from Cats.
Yes. Yeah, that was cute.
Not the movie version, not the Jennifer Hudson version.
No.
It's the original Julie Christie who sang that.
I don't know. But yeah, they went back. It's so out of place in this movie. It's the best sequence in the movie in terms of being a funny, entertaining bit that they pull off. But it's super out of place. I was like, did they hire James Gunn to write and produce one sequence in this movie? Because it's very James Gunny, isn't it?
It is James Gunny. Like the abject horror on the face of the crew members as these cats devour them while this funny song plays and just these cute cat, like, you turn the corner and just see these two adorable kittens, but like it's treated like a jump scare and a horror. It's really well done.
Yeah.
If I had to pick a nit with it, if I had a qualm, my qualm would be they were like young people like cats, right? And that movie was a meme, right? I bet people would like it if we did something with cats.
Yeah.
And it's just felt a little pandery almost, but fuck it. It's a fun time.
Because it's like, there's nothing else with that level of creativity in the movie. It really does feel like they farmed it out. Like they might have finished this movie and gone, we need to invent a new trailer moment, or we need to invent a new scene that's the thing that people are going to tell their friends about when they come out of the theater.
It was a trailer moment. I remember it in the trailers.
Okay. And it's good, but it's too bad they didn't make the rest of the movie out of the black box, as the joke goes, right? This is the good part of the movie, but the rest of it's not built out of the same stuff.
Yeah. And then Dar-Ben just blows herself up, which is weird. I know that her henchman does warn her a couple times. No, it'll kill you, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I don't care. I would gladly sacrifice myself. It's not like the movie didn't warn us that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it is odd to just have your bad guy kill themselves.
Yeah.
Effectively.
It makes you pay attention to the plot mechanics or the motivational mechanics. Like, it would have sucked if Carol just murdered the lady who's blaming her for murdering people in the first place.
She's like, you can't call me Annihilator anymore, but by the way, I'm going to kill you now.
Yeah, so you get why they did it, but it feels weird in the middle of the scene to have the movie's arch villain disintegrate in front of your eyes. And you're like, okay, let's just move on and let's clean up after this.
Yeah, now we have no antagonist. We just have a situation, which is not like the best drama, but she's gone.
And there's a huge amount of drama in Monica sacrificing herself. She goes to the other side knowing that she's going to be trapped there. And she says that at some point, right? Which is cool drama. But like you pointed out earlier, it has nothing to do with the Monica character or her wants and needs. Like it results in an interesting new scenario where she meets her mom, who's not her mom in this parallel universe. But other than that, like it's in no way the resolution of the Monica character's arc, is it?
No, like there's nothing. First of all, she had no idea she was going to run into her mom on the other side of it. So it's not like I'm going to be with my family again, like it's okay.
No.
She's doing a selfless thing, but we already knew the character was like noble and brave. It doesn't add any layers of characterization to her that we didn't already have.
You brought up at the beginning of the movie, you thought maybe her arc was about doing her job, right? Because that's all that she's doing in the first, when you meet her, is like, is she going to do her job? Yeah.
And throughout the entire movie, she's just doing her job.
So this is like the ultimate sacrifice for your job.
She's a true company man.
That's the point of her character.
Always support your government-funded espionage groups. Do whatever they ask.
Make your boss look good. And this is how you do it.
Dope on the table, or closing rifts and
close a rift.
Now we got to get to one of my biggest issues, which is Dar-Ben is scolding Captain Marvel, Carol, at one point, like, you owe me. At this point, Monica's like, yeah, maybe she does. She should probably fix what she did. And then at the end of the movie, Carol just flies into Hala's son and fixes it. Not in any way where she had to sacrifice anything. No. She flies out of it just fine.
Yeah.
That's all she had to do. It didn't cost her anything.
No.
She didn't even try to fix what she fucking did.
And she wasn't even like irrationally scared of it. it's just something she never thought to do.
She just says, I've never done it before.
Okay.
You're the strongest hero in the galaxy. Just fucking try it. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Their son's already dying.
She could have been, this whole time, she could have been bringing them bottled water, tanks of oxygen.
Yeah.
And trying to like spark the sun. She did none of that. So you kind of like, oh, maybe she was a bad guy this whole time.
She didn't even tell FEMA, hey, these people could probably use some tents and stuff.
Get them some help. Yeah.
She was like, man, it really sucks what happened. Okay, I'm going to go now.
Oh, I guess a strongman warlord is going to take over the planet and seek vengeance upon me and everything I love. But that's just what happens.
Maybe she really is a metaphor for U.S. foreign policy.
Just ignore the problems you create until they come back and bite you in the ass.
And then we get the post-credit scenes. You already mentioned that Monica meets her mom, who's not her mom. But before that, we find out that Kamala is putting together a team of kid superheroes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And she goes and finds Kate Bishop, who is the new Hawkeye, I guess. She's got a bow and arrow.
Where did I learn that fact? I feel like I had seen Haley Steinfeld.
The Hawkeye show. She was in the Hawkeye show.
Okay. So I must have watched part of that because I'm like,
or you just read there was just tweets and stuff about it. You could have just read the discourse.
Yeah. So that's
Haley Steinfeld's a fun actor. She's good. They have a good banter. I wouldn't mind seeing a movie where the two of them interact with each other.
Yeah, that seems like that could be
I think this is Haley Steinfeld's first movie appearance in the MCU.
Okay.
Yeah, no problems there. That's a fine mid-credit scene as far as MCU ones go. But then we did not mention the other person in the room with Monica and Maria at the end of the movie. Big spoilers here.
Yeah.
It's Bob Iger. No, it's Beast. Hank McCoy from the X-Men.
He heard the blues of calling.
Oh boy.
He blew himself, as
fucking crazy.
You might say. I'm bringing all the jokes around.
There's gotta be a better way to say that. Yeah, the big blue, like he's the Beast of the original like X-Men animated series, the big blue furry guy. Kelsey Grammer does his voice. Like that's always been pitch perfect casting. Kelsey Grammer as Beast has always just made all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
No complaints there, but it felt kind of like, hey, you know this guy. Look at this guy.
Look at him.
You know him.
He's blue and he sounds familiar.
He's from the X-Men. The X-Men are coming. They're gonna save us.
Yeah.
They're gonna save the MCU.
Yeah, I didn't even realize at the time. Obviously, it's a big deal. The X-Men have been the glaring omission from the MCU for all these years because
Fox had the rights.
Fox had the rights. They invented the modern genre of superhero movie, and then they got left behind on that train and never got to circle back.
It doesn't help that they started making like dog shit ass movies at some point. The last two were fucking terrible.
There was some decent stuff in the middle, though.
I really liked First Class. I like Days of Future Past a lot. There's some good stuff in there. The second one, I think, is still the benchmark, X2. The first one kind of sucks now, if you watch it.
But it's been ages.
Yeah, like they hadn't quite figured it out yet. X2 feels like where they figured it out.
But yeah, if you don't know any of that history, then you're like, oh, wow, it's a blue guy. If you do know if you do know the history, it's, oh my God, I'm so excited for the X-Men coming back. But it's funny how different the context could make it.
Exactly. Like, that's just the thing. In that sense, it's pure fan service, right?
Yeah.
All right. That's the Marvels. Should we talk a little bit about the people involved and what they're up to now?
Yeah. Let's hear about their Days of Future Past.
Oh, brother. A whole 2 months later. So we mentioned Nia DaCosta has a film in production with Tessa Thompson, Hedda, based on the play Hedda Gabler. Wow. This is only the third movie Nia DaCosta has made. Like I said, really want to see that movie, Little Woods. Got a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's her and Lily James. So seriously, if somebody has a way to watch it, let me know.
Okay.
But she also directed 2021's Candyman reboot from a script she co-wrote with Jordan Peele and Wynn Rosenfeld. I really liked that movie. I was a big fan of the original Candyman. Thought the reboot was great. I like Nia DaCosta as a filmmaker in spite of this movie.
Yeah.
Megan McDonnell was the writer along with DaCosta, did some work on the script. And as I mentioned, she wrote on WandaVision, but she's also writing on the Agatha series coming up with Catherine Hahn, plus Dark Matter and the MCU series Vision Quest, which is about Vision, obviously.
But yeah, she's involved deeply wound through a lot of that stuff. And WandaVision was really well written, like both just scene to scene, and the overarching concept of it was really cool and actually worked and paid off and was great. So like this movie does not do justice to Megan McDonnell's capabilities as a writer.
Writing on WandaVision is also a unique challenge because you know how the show kind of genre jumped from episode to episode.
Yeah.
You have to be able to write in all these kind of some anachronistic genres. Nobody writes the kind of sitcom-y dialogue anymore.
That's a great point.
So to be able to do that is impressive. Yeah. So she's got some chops. chops.
I remember being impressed by that. I'm like, oh, they nailed all these eras and different genres and stuff. It was really good writing.
And then Brie Larson, the titular Captain Marvel of the Marvels, she took a break from acting in the early days of COVID, came back to create, direct, and host docuseries Growing Up for Disney, which I've never heard of, but sounds cool. She also appeared in Fortnite as the character Paradigm, not even as Brie Larson. That's weird.
Oh, interesting.
She keeps doing stuff that I'm like, the big movie star Brie Larson, she did that? 2023, she popped up in Fast X, so she's in the Fast and the Furious universe now. I didn't see it, but apparently it was a pretty small role, so I have to imagine that they'll expand that in the future installments.
Oh, okay.
She spearheaded the development of Apple TV Plus series Lessons in Chemistry, which she also starred in.
Okay.
Did not watch that. I think it got pretty good reviews.
I don't know anything about it, of course, because it's an Apple TV Plus series, so you're not supposed to know it exists, but it's still prestigious.
Right. They just come and go. Apple TV Plus, like, we spent $700 million making this season of TV, and we're not going to tell anyone. We're just going to drop it in the middle of the night.
It's between you and your iPhone.
She did reprise her role as Envy Adams in the Scott Pilgrim anime.
Oh, cool.
Just came out, so that was cool. She's got 2 projects in development, a movie called Lady Business. I'm sure the Carol Danvers haters will love that. And an untitled CIA TV series. But in more topical news, she did confirm in late November that she would return as Captain Marvel, but did not specify the project.
Oh, okay.
If it'll be a solo movie or another team-up movie or what.
I see.
Teyonah Parris, she's been busy outside the MCU. She starred in Candyman, They Cloned Tyrone, and Dashing Through the Snow. She's going to star with Nicole Kidman and Linda Cardellini in a comedy series called No Good Deed. So that's a big cast, and she's one of the 3 stars.
That's a really fun pairing. That's neat. Not a pairing when it's a trio, but...
Right. No, fun team up. I'm enjoying this chapter of Nicole Kidman's career where she just starred in TV shows. She's on one right now, right? That was popular. I can't remember what it was called. Expat? Expat. That's what it's called.
Oh, I didn't even know about that.
Already talked about Iman Vellani. She's only ever played Kamala Khan. Her next role appears to be the Avengers movie, which is pegged for 2027. So I assume she'll do something in between now and then.
Yeah, but good for her.
It's pretty impressive to have that be your only credit. And Zawe Ashton, she's been in a decent amount of stuff. She was in some good things like Handmaid's Tale and Nocturnal Animals, and some not so good stuff like Velvet Buzzsaw, which I was so excited for. Velvet Buzzsaw. The movie sucks. That was the Gilroy follow-up to Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, okay. I can picture him in the commercial for it, but I never got to watch it.
Yeah, he's like an art dealer. The movie sucks. She's got no projects in development or production that I could tell, so she may be taking a little time off, but good actress. I did remember her from The Handmaid's Tale. She was only in a handful of episodes, but she made an impression.
Yeah, she makes an impression on screen. It was strong casting. It's just we wish that the movie would have surrounded her with a little better story.
So that was the Marvels. We're done with our 2023 retrospective. Next week, we're going to go way back in time. Way back. All the way back to 2020. I figured with the primaries primarying, and there's a lot of election talk going on, we should cover The Hunt, because that was a real hot button issue when it was released.
So yeah,
in the early days of COVID.
Don't let anybody say we're afraid to wade into the discourse, because I don't know, I feel like the discourse has evaporated from that movie at this point, and I like to be able to evaluate it as a movie. We'll see what kind of politics are innately bound to it.
I would just want to watch more things with Betty Gilpin in it, because that's Bae. I love Betty Gilpin. She's so good. She was great in Glow. She's just a great actor. I have seen it before. Okay. I enjoyed it. I watched it pretty soon after it came to streaming. So it's been a little while, but I had fun with it. I don't think it's an overtly political movie.
Okay.
I think both sides just saw boogeymen and revealed a lot about themselves by protesting it. We'll see if that theory holds up. But yeah fun movie. And it'll be exciting to talk about something that is a little further removed from theaters, because our last 2 movies literally just came out.
We're real topical, and now we get to relax a little bit.
So thank you guys so much for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe to the pod if you could. We'd love to get to 100 reviews on Apple. That would be a big deal for us. We're at about 80 right now.
Ooh, that would be special.
Be a big milestone. You can email us, blastzonepod@gmail.com, if you have any feedback, movie suggestions, just want to chat. You can follow us on Twitter @blastzonepod. We're posting more regularly now that we're back, so there's not just stuff about the new episodes, just any kind of movie-related commentary or jokes we think of.
Good time stuff.
And we'll see you next time in the Blast Zone.
See you next time in the Blast Zone.
The Blast Zone.